In this video, I'm going to cover parts of speech. So I decided to make a parts of speech video because many of you have told me that you've been out of school a long time and you've forgotten your parts of speech. So here is your parts of speech video. So there are many different parts of speech. The first one is a common noun. So what is a common noun? A common noun is a person, place, or thing. So examples of a common noun is book, river, table. A plural noun is more than one person, place, or thing, such as books, rivers, tables. A proper noun has names and titles, names of people, places, and things. And proper nouns are usually capitalized. Examples of proper nouns are King James, Uncle Steve, Aunt Janet, and Ronald Reagan. A pronoun replaces a noun. So here you could have a subject pronoun which comes before the verb, he, she, they, we, you, and object pronouns that come after the verb, like him, her, us, you, them. A pronoun agrees with its antecedent, that is the noun it replaces. We're going to go over that a lot more when we study subject-verb agreement. An adjective modifies a noun. So if I wanted to say something like a red car, okay, so red, and so red is an adjective that modifies the noun. Modifies the noun car. An adverb modifies a verb and usually ends in ly. And so John walks very slowly. And so slowly is an adverb that modifies how fast or how slow John walks. So it modifies the verb walks. So that's an adverb. Subject and verb. The subject of the sentence comes before the verb. An example would be the dog, subject, and subjects tend to be, subjects and objects are all nouns. So the subject, the dog, chased, and a verb is the action. Except for stative verbs, where it's got to do with description like seem and looks and is. But for the most part, verbs are action verbs and describe an action. The cat. So the dog chased the cat. So here the cat is an object. An object means it comes after the verb. In other words, what did he chase? He chased the cat. So therefore, that's the object. So a complete sentence has a subject, a verb, an object, and a prepositional phrase. And this is known as a simple sentence. The subject does the action, the verb is the action, the object receives the action, and the preposition around the yard shows where something is. Prepositions always show time and place. Around the yard, under the table, above the table. A singular subject means you have one noun. The dog chased after the cat. Plural subjects means more than one noun. Many dogs chased after the cat. Subject-verb agreement. A verb must agree with the subject in number. A singular subject takes a singular verb. A plural subject takes a plural verb. So if you have a singular subject, Jane, takes a singular verb, is. If you have a compound subject, a plural subject, then it takes a plural verb, are. And when you have a gerund is an ing-like verb that acts like a noun. In other words, a gerund is, for example, he is shopping. That's not a gerund. That's the present. That's the verb, okay? So here shopping is used as a verb. But here, shopping is fun. Here, shopping is used as a noun. So remember that every time we have a subject of a sentence, it's always a noun. And whenever you have an object in a sentence, it's always a noun. So when you use a gerund subject, this is known as a gerund subject, that is a verb-like word that acts like a noun. And when you use a gerund in a sentence, it's always singular. So you don't say shopping are fun. So every time you use a gerund subject, it takes a singular verb. Eating at a restaurant, that's called a gerund subject, is a fun thing to do. And so this is more about subject-verb agreement. When you have indefinite pronouns, like nobody, somebody, everybody, anybody, always takes a singular verb. When you have correlative pronouns, like either or neither nor, then you agree with the second subject. So when you have either or neither nor, so for example, if I say, neither my parents nor my brother are in the room. Now, when you have neither nor or either or, we agree with this one. We agree with the second subject. So neither my parents nor my brother is in the room. If I switch it, if I say neither my brother nor my parents are in the room. So here I switched it. Now the second subject is plural. So now I'm going to say, neither my brother nor my parents are in the room. So when you use correlative pronouns, you have to remember to agree with the second subject. Why is this the case? I don't remember the why. I just remember memorizing this rule and just using it that way. So I don't remember. But when you have and, okay? So when you have Hannah or Steve, that always takes a singular verb. But if you have Hannah and Steve, that takes a plural verb. So for example, if I have Hannah or Steve are in the room, Hannah and Steve are in the room. It should be are. Yeah, because I'm trying to do an exercise. So are in the room. And Hannah and Steve are in the room. Okay, I got are twice. Anyway, so when we have Hannah or Steve, the answer is, because we're talking about one or the other as a single individual. If we say Hannah and Steve, then it becomes are. So let me repeat. When you have Hannah or Steve, it's is. Okay, when you have or, it's a singular verb. When you have and, Hannah and Steve, then you have a plural verb. So it becomes Hannah and Steve are in the room. So let's try this. A plum or an orange. So there you got the or, which makes it singular because you're talking about either the orange or the plum. So the answer is. If I say both of them, plums and oranges, together, all of them, then it becomes plums and oranges are a good snack. So you got to be really careful to make sure that your verbs agree with your subjects. So plural subjects takes plural nouns. Plural subjects take plural verbs. Singular subjects take singular verbs. Also, when we write, do not change your verb tenses unnecessarily. If you begin your paper writing in the present tense, do not shift suddenly to the past tense. And also, if you begin in the past tense, do not suddenly shift to the present without a reason. So if you start your sentence in the present tense, then all your other verbs need to be in the present tense. If you start your sentence in the past tense, then all your verbs should be in the past tense. This is called consistent verb consistency, consistent verb tense. So incorrect would be the gardener breaks up the hard earth, added peat, and blends the soil evenly. Because then here you've got present tense, past tense, present tense. That's not consistent. That makes your essay sound very choppy. So the correct way to write it is the gardener breaks up the hard earth, adds peat, and blends the soil. You can even hear the difference, that it sounds much better. And so here you would want to write present, present, and present. If you're going to suddenly switch to past tense, that's a different lesson. Then I teach you how you would use certain words that would introduce like past, simple past. A simple past is used when a sudden action occurs. Suddenly, the earthquake struck. So in the middle of, let's say this guy he's doing his gardening. He's breaking up the hard earth, adds the peat, blends the soil, and then you would use a signal word like suddenly, an earthquake struck. So you then you can change, to then you can change your tenses. But for the most part, we use the same tense throughout the sentence. And then when we do our verb tenses, this is the part of the lesson that's going to take the most time. There are many verb tenses in English. You have the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. And so the first batch of verb tenses are known as simple verb tenses. Simple verb tenses talk about one finished action in the present, in the past, or in the future. So if I want to say in the present tense, today John walks his dog. Okay, so he finished. That's a finished action that he finished today. Yesterday, John walked his dog. Once again, it's a finished action that happened yesterday. And then tomorrow, John will walk his dog. And then that's a finished action that will happen in the future. And so this is known as the present tense that everybody knows about. This is known as the simple, actually it's known as simple present. Simple, this is all review. Okay, so simple past and simple future. And just for a little note, in Chinese, they don't have any tenses. All they have are these marker words. So you would say, today, John walks the dog. Yesterday, John walks the dog. But because of the word yesterday, that's how you could tell that the walking took place in the past. And then walks, it's always the same. John walks, John walks. So in Chinese, tenses are so much simpler. So you can imagine when a Chinese student tries to learn English and has to learn all this conjugation, yeah, that becomes very difficult. Okay, so now we've finished the simple tenses. Simple tenses talks about one finished action in the present, the past, or the future. Now the next batch of tenses are known as progressive continuous tenses. The progressive tenses talk about an action that is going on right now as we are speaking. In other words, an action that keeps on happening. It didn't stop. It's not finished. And so this unfinished action is happening in the present, or the past, or the future. So present progressive. Right now, John is walking his dog. Right now, Professor H is lecturing this lecture. Yesterday, John was walking his dog. So that's the past progressive. Yesterday, I was lecturing about sentence structure. I actually created the sentence structure video yesterday. So you have present progressive, right now, something that's happening, something that was happening yesterday, and then something that will be happening tomorrow. So tomorrow, John will be walking his dog. Tomorrow, I will be talking on another Google Meet with another teacher. So today, yesterday, tomorrow. So there you have the present progressive, past progressive, future progressive. And then the only difference between the simple tenses and the progressive and continuous mean the same thing. There's no difference. It's just that different grammar books. Some use present progressive, some say present continuous. I don't know why there's that difference. I just know that it means the same thing, and it's something that's always still happening, still continuing. So those are the continuous tenses. So right now I am lecturing to you about English grammar, and English grammar to me is really easy. The next batch of tenses are known as perfect tenses. Now perfect tenses tend to take on the verb to have. Anytime you have the verb to have, then it's a perfect tense. Another characteristic of perfect tenses usually talk about two actions in which one action happens before another action. So you would have two actions, one happening before the other in the present, in the past, and in the future. And so all of these verb tenses are very similar to if you speak French, Spanish, Italian. It should be the same. Okay? So, for instance, in French, you would say, j'avais habité à Los Angeles depuis 1985. In other words, I have lived in Los Angeles since 1985. And here you have two actions. In 1985, I moved to Los Angeles. And then I'm still living in Los Angeles. So in a present perfect, you have something slightly in the past, but still continuing on into the future. In other words, I'm still living in Los Angeles. So present perfect means that you have two finished actions, one that's happening and one action that's still happening and still happening into the future. And then John had brushed his teeth before he went to bed. So whenever you have the had plus a past participle, brushed, then that's the action, that's the past tense that's further back into the past than the simple past. Okay, so that's the difference between the simple past and the past perfect. Past perfect is the past. That's the action that happened before another action. So John had brushed his teeth. Had brushed. When I say had brushed to an American ear, it sounds like a long time ago. Okay, so John had brushed his teeth before he went to bed. So I will go over more nuances of this. I'm just telling you the icing on the cake. Right now, just the basics. Later, I'll go into all the subtleties, which actually my students love, but I'm not going to go into that. I don't have time for that for this video, especially in Zoom videos. So because when I teach face-to-face, I can do that, but with Zoom, I got to stick to the point. So then when you have, so in the present perfect, you have two actions, one happening before the other. Then in the past, you have two actions, one happening before the other. And then in the future, John will have finished his classes by 5 p.m. before he will go to the bar to hang out with friends next week. So next Friday, John will have finished, so next Friday by 5 p.m., he will have finished his classes. Then at 6 p.m. on Friday, he will go to the bar to hang out with friends. So here you have two finished future actions, one happening before the other. Okay, so two actions, and every time you have a have plus a past participle, have plus a past participle. So lived, brushed, and finished are all past participles. In other words, the past tense of a regular verb. That's how you form, that's how you form a perfect tense. And it's a completed action. In other words, one completed action before another completed action. And I know I've got students who are just dying to ask me, but what if I just say John brushed his teeth before he went to bed? Why do I have to say John had brushed his teeth? Those are the nuances I will get to in another video. Okay, so right now, just hold up the question. That's such a common question. Well, how come I can't use the other one? And stuff like that. So when you have John had brushed his teeth, I'm repeating myself, aren't I? Yeah, so that's way, in other words, way in the past. And when you use past perfect, it makes it sound like it's so long ago. It has to do with writing style. Whether you want it to sound like it was a long time ago, or if you want to sound like it's more in the present. So John brushed his teeth before he went to bed. Okay, that's like something he does every day, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. But John had brushed his teeth. That means it's something that he did. It sounds like he did it in other words, the time period before he brushed his teeth, before he went to bed. Okay, this could be like 10 hours or something. Whereas if I took out the had, let's do it like this. That means that John brushed his teeth. A minute later, he goes to bed. That's the difference. Okay, if I stick in the had, that means John had brushed his teeth 70 hours ago. Okay, I'm being facetious. 2 or 3 or 4 hours ago, or whatever, then he went to bed. So there's a big, gap in time. That's the difference between using the simple past and the past perfect. Everybody always asks me, but what about using that? So it's got to do with writing style. Okay, let's get to the perfect progressives. So perfect progressive, just like whenever you have the word perfect, it means that you're using have plus another verb, okay? Have. And every time you use the word perfect, it means 2 actions, one happening before the other. So that's what the word perfect means in tenses. And if you were to translate this into your own language, you would get it, okay? As soon as I say imparfait, imparfait to a French student, even with my bad accent, oh, that's what past perfect is. And I think in Spanish it's imperfecto or something like that. And even with my bad accent, oh yeah, I remember learning that in grammar school back in my country or something. Then it makes sense. So sometimes translating works. But anyway, so in a perfect progressive tense, you have one continuous action happening before another continuous action in the present, in the past, and in the future. And then everybody's asking, well, that's what this is, isn't it? Isn't progressive tenses the same thing? One continuous action before another continuous action? What's the difference between this one, progressive tenses, and perfect progressive tenses? And so when I used to teach face-to-face, we would have it would take hours just discussing all the subtleties, because when you have face-to-face, you have more interaction and more time. So, but suffice it to say that just like with the perfect tenses, when you use the perfect progressive tenses, it means that there's a big gap in time between one action and another action. Everything is further into the past. Okay, if I use any of these two tenses, simple tenses or progressive, any of these tenses means that one action happens after another action. Any of these two, the last two, you got to think of it that way. Anything the perfect tenses, both of them, it means that whatever action happened, it happened really far in the past. Then you've got several days, several years, several decades, and then the next action happens. That's the difference. Here, in the first two tenses, a minute ago, a second ago, or something like that. In other words, it's very, very close, and you get this sense of immediacy. So if you're the writer and you want to give the reader a sense of immediacy, then you're going to stick to simple tenses and progressive tense. If you want to give the reader a sense that, oh wow, there's a sense of history, this is ancient or something, then we would use more perfect tenses and perfect progressive tenses. That's how I could describe it in a nutshell, you see. And so let's get back to, so when we are talking about we have been listening to the teacher for 40 minutes. Oh my God, we have total Zoom fatigue. That means it's something that's happening right now and still going on into the future, okay? And as opposed to we have listened, that means it's something finished. We have listened to the teacher for 40 minutes. So that sounds more complete. Whereas this one, and it's all got all these nuances. See, if you learn the nuances of all these tenses, you can be a maestro at manipulating how your reader perceives how you write. This is why we learn about all the nuances of verb tenses, so that you become, it's like you're the puppeteer and you're pulling the strings of how the reader reads what you read, either by your punctuation, when you use either a semicolon, which makes the sentence go by really fast, or if you use a period, then suddenly the reader has to stop and pause and then read on to the next sentence. So the way we shape our sentences, the variety of our sentences, as well as how we write our verb tenses, as well as our style, that all together as a package is how we write. It's not just about essay structure or thesis statement or 5-paragraph essay structure, which is what we've covered so far, and everyone's going, but that's so limited. Well, that's because we can't cover everything all at the same time, you know. You got to cover the sentence structure at a different lesson, then you cover the verb tenses at another lesson, then you cover punctuation at another lesson. But each element adds to your style. If you know your verb tenses, you can be a maestro at writing. John had been walking his dog when the earthquake struck. So here you have two actions in the past. And so John had walked his dog. So that means he finished. Okay, he's sitting around probably having beer. He already walked his dog a long time ago. And he's having his beer. He probably forgot about his dog by this time. Okay, in this one, John is still walking his dog, and then the earthquake struck. Okay, and so that's the difference. So here you have John had been walking his dog when the earthquake struck, is that yesterday, while he was walking his dog, the earthquake struck. But that's the difference is with here. John was walking his dog when the earthquake struck, or John had been walking his dog when the earthquake struck. That means that there's a bigger time difference between here, and this one sounds more immediate, like a second later. John was walking his dog, and 1 second later, the earthquake struck. Here, John was walking his dog, and then maybe John stood there, and for like maybe 10, 15 minutes, then the earthquake struck. In other words, there's a sense that there's more time that passes between action 1 and action 2. Yet he was still walking his dog, and then it took him a while to realize, oh, is there an earthquake? Huh? You know, you haven't processed it, you see. So there's a time lag here. Here, he realized right away, he's walking his dog, and then a second later, oh, okay, the earthquake struck. So that's always a difference in time. In other words, there's a difference in time between when one action happens and another action happens. I will have been talking for an hour before this lecture finishes at 7 p.m. So here you have 2 actions, but this time it's happening in the future. And so if English is not your first language, the Betty Azar book goes over in massive detail all of these verb tenses. And in case you don't know how to spell Azar, okay, Betty Azar. Yeah, so that's the Understanding and Mastering English Grammar, which I did put in your Week 5 forum as well as in the announcements. So depending on which class you're in with me, if it's not in your Week 5 forum, then that means it's in your announcements, you see. So I always put the ESL and grammar resources either in the announcements or in the forums. And if I forgot, then you've got to remind me. Okay, so I put it in there, and then you just click on the book covers to get the grammar. And so, and if you're not, and if you are a native speaker, you can still learn, and then you can teach the Betty Azar stuff to your kids. If you think, oh my God, this is such easy grammar, then you can then you're in the position to teach it to your kids. So either you're learning it for yourself or for the kids, either or. It's always good to know your verb tenses. So this ends this video on parts of speech. Now I would have gone over more, but I'm lacking time. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me.